Maggie, a 67-year-old retired elementary school teacher. For over 3 decades, I've been the heart of our family Christmas gatherings, pouring love into every detail from the decorations to the dessert. My son Thomas and his wife Stephanie have been part of this tradition since they married 8 years ago. But last Tuesday, sitting in an upscale brunch spot downtown, Stephanie looked me straight in the eyes and said, "We've decided not to invite you for Christmas this year." I just nodded, keeping my composure, while my world crumbled inside. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see how I handled this situation that changed everything about our family dynamic. Teaching was never just a job for me. For 40 years, I shaped young minds at Lincoln Elementary, retiring only 3 years ago. I loved every minute with those children, but my greatest pride has always been my own son, Thomas. Frank, my husband of 42 years, passed away 5 years ago after a brief but brutal battle with pancreatic cancer. We'd built our life together in the 4-bedroom colonial we bought when Thomas was just 3 years old. It's the only home Thomas really remembers, filled with 35 years of Christmas mornings, birthday celebrations, and everyday memories. When Thomas brought Stephanie home to meet me 8 years ago, I welcomed her with open arms. She was ambitious, beautiful, and my son was clearly smitten. Their wedding was the happiest day since Thomas's birth, and when they announced they were expecting twins, 2 years later, I felt blessed beyond measure. Lucy and Emma, my precious granddaughters, are now 6 years old, with their father's gentle eyes and their mother's sharp intelligence. From the moment they were born, I've been Grandma Maggie, the one who babysits, last minute remembers favorite snacks, and keeps a drawer of special toys just for their visits. After Frank died, holidays became even more important to me. Christmas, especially, became my way of keeping our family traditions alive. I'd spend weeks planning the perfect menu, decorating every inch of the house and selecting thoughtful gifts. It was exhausting, but fulfilling, knowing I was creating memories that would outlast me. Thomas and Stephanie's careers took off quickly after the twins were born. He climbed the ladder at his financial firm, while her marketing expertise made her invaluable to a growing tech company. Their success made me proud, but their increasingly hectic schedules meant less time for family dinners and weekend visits. When they were struggling to purchase their first home 5 years ago, I offered the money Frank and I had saved for retirement travels. "Your father would want you to have it," I told Thomas, writing a check for the down payment that represented years of careful saving. Stephanie hugged me with tears in her eyes, promising they'd pay me back someday. I never expected repayment. What mother would? But I did expect to remain part of their lives, to be included in family milestones and everyday moments. I'd always paid for the holiday catering too, insisting it was my gift to everyone. Frank had left me comfortable financially, and seeing everyone enjoy those special meals was worth every penny. The first hints of tension appeared when Stephanie began suggesting changes to our holiday traditions. "The dining room is a bit cramped," she mentioned last Christmas. And these decorations are looking dated. I smiled and nodded, trying not to take offense. After all, styles change, and perhaps my home was beginning to show its age. I should have noticed the shift in our relationship sooner, but sometimes a mother sees what she wants to see. Over the past year, Stephanie became increasingly particular about our family gatherings. "We can't make it this Sunday" became a common text message, often sent just hours before our standing family dinner. Thomas's explanations ranged from work emergencies to the girls' suddenly packed social schedules. When they did visit, Stephanie would spend much of the time on her phone, occasionally showing me Instagram posts from friends with modern homes and lavish parties. Andrea just renovated her entire first floor. "Doesn't that look amazing?" she'd ask, holding up pictures of sterile white kitchens that looked nothing like my warm, lived-in home. I'd smile and agree, ignoring the implied comparison. The girls' birthday party last spring was the first event they didn't hold at my house. "We've booked a party place," Stephanie explained. "It's easier with so many kids." I understood the practical reasons, but when I arrived to find Stephanie's parents had been invited to help set up, while I was told to just come at the regular time. The message felt clear. Our weekly Sunday visits dwindled to twice monthly, then monthly, as Thomas repeatedly apologized for their busy schedule. "The girls have so many activities now," he'd explain, but Facebook posts showed them at brunches with Stephanie's family on those same Sundays. When I offered to pick the girls up from school or watch them on teacher work days, Stephanie always had an alternative arrangement. "My mom's coming to stay," or "we've enrolled them in a day camp." I stopped offering, eventually, tired of the polite rejections. Thanksgiving had always been the kickoff to our Christmas season. This year, Thomas called a week before to suggest a change. "Stephanie thinks we should try a restaurant this year," he said hesitantly. "She's found a place that does a nice holiday menu." I swallowed my disappointment and agreed, only to find ourselves at an overpriced restaurant with Stephanie's parents' brother and his new girlfriend. As the conversation flowed around me, I felt oddly like a guest rather than family. During dessert, Stephanie casually mentioned they were thinking of doing something different for Christmas this year, but changed the subject before I could ask for details. Despite these warning signs, I continued planning our Christmas gathering. I ordered the same catering package we'd enjoyed for years, bought special gifts for everyone, and even started decorating the weekend after Thanksgiving. When Stephanie texted, asking if we could grab brunch just us girls, I was delighted, assuming she wanted to discuss Christmas plans. I arrived at Harvest Table, a trendy downtown restaurant, with $20 avocado toast 15 minutes early. The hostess led me to a corner table where the prices on the menu made me wince. When Stephanie swept in 20 minutes late, not a hair out of place in her sleek bob, I noticed she barely apologized for her tardiness. "I've already ordered you a mimosa," she announced before I could speak. "We're celebrating today." The mimosa arrived bright and bubbly against the restaurant's minimalist white plates. Stephanie took a long sip of her own drink before setting it down precisely. "So we need to talk about Christmas," she said, adjusting her silverware so it aligned perfectly with the edge of the table. Thomas and I have made some decisions. I smiled encouragingly, expecting her to ask about menu preferences or gift suggestions for the girls. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and delivered the blow. "We've decided not to come to your house this year," she said, her voice pleasant but firm. "We're actually not inviting you for Christmas at all. We've booked a week at Snow Peak Resort with my parents. The girls are so excited about skiing lessons." The mimosa turned bitter in my mouth. "I see," I managed, though I didn't see it all. "That sounds lovely for the girls." "It will be." Stephanie nodded, seemingly relieved at my calm response. "It's important for us to start our own traditions. You know, the girls are at the perfect age to create those core memories. My family always skied at Christmas, and I want to share that with them." "Of course," I said automatically. "Traditions are important." "Exactly!" Stephanie beamed, misinterpreting my response as enthusiasm. "And honestly, Maggie, your house is looking a bit worn these days. The girls need space to play with their new toys, and last year was so cramped with everyone squeezed around that dining table." Each word stung like a paper cut, small but surprisingly painful. I had hosted 20 people comfortably in that dining room for decades. "Thomas agrees it's for the best," she continued, scrolling briefly through her phone before setting it down. "He didn't want to upset you, which is why I'm handling this conversation. He sends his love, of course. The absence of my son in this decision cut deeply." Had he truly agreed? Or had Stephanie simply told him I would understand? I would never know as she plowed forward with plans that had clearly been finalized long ago. "We'll still do the extended family gathering at your house, though," she added, as if offering a consolation prize. "Everyone expects it, and you do have all those decorations already up. Thomas and I will come by on the 23rd before we leave for the resort." I blinked, trying to process her words. "You want me to host the family gathering without you? Thomas and the girls there?" "Well, yes," she shrugged. "Aunt Judy and Uncle Paul always come, and Thomas's cousins. They'd be so disappointed if it was cancelled. And if you could prepare those gift baskets for everyone, like last year." Everyone loved those homemade cookies. The audacity was breathtaking. Not only was I uninvited from spending Christmas with my only son and granddaughters, but I was expected to maintain the charade of a family gathering for extended relatives and provide gifts they could take credit for. "And about the catering," Stephanie continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "I hope you've booked Martin's again. Their ham was perfect last year." I had indeed already paid the deposit to Martin's, catering a considerable sum that was apparently going to feed a gathering I was hosting, but my immediate family would not attend. "I'll need to think about all this," I said quietly. Stephanie's expression hardened slightly. "There's nothing to think about, Maggie. The resort is booked and non-refundable. We're going. I just thought you should know before you bought too many presents for the girls. They can only take what fits in the car anyway." I nodded again, not trusting my voice for more. Throughout the rest of brunch, I performed the role of understanding mother-in-law, while inside my heart cracked into pieces with each bite of overpriced eggs Benedict. The drive home from the restaurant passed in a blur. I don't remember the traffic lights or turns, just the crushing weight in my chest, growing heavier with each mile. when I finally parked in my driveway, I couldn't bring myself to go inside immediately. My house suddenly looking old and tired, through Stephanie's eyes seemed to mirror my own feelings. Inside, the Christmas decorations I'd so lovingly arranged mocked me. The special ornaments marking Thomas's childhood years, the handmade stockings with everyone's names, the extra lights I'd strung this year, to make the twins' faces light up with wonder. None of it mattered now. I moved through the rooms in a daze, touching photo frames that chronicled our family history. Thomas's first Christmas, his high school graduation, his wedding day with Stephanie, smiling radiantly. Had she been calculating even then how to eventually edge me out? The tears came suddenly and with such force that I sank to the floor beside the Christmas tree. Deep, guttural sobs that I hadn't allowed myself since Frank's funeral racked my body. I cried for the loss of my holiday dreams, for my son's absence, for the realization that I was no longer the center of our family, but an inconvenient obligation. When the storm of tears finally subsided, I reached for my phone and called Barbara, my friend of 30 years, who had seen me through Frank's illness and every crisis before that. She said what? Barbara's indignation was immediate and comforting. And Thomas went along with this. Apparently, I sighed, exhaustion setting in. She said it was a joint decision. I don't believe that for a minute, Barbara scoffed. Thomas adores you. Something else is going on here. Her words made me pause. Barbara had always been more perceptive about people's motivations than I was. What do you mean? Barbara hesitated. I didn't want to say anything because it's just rumors, but Janet's daughter works at the same company as Thomas. She mentioned he's been passed over for promotion twice now. And there's talk that Stephanie's been spending money like water. This new information settled uncomfortably with other puzzle pieces I'd been ignoring. The designer clothes Stephanie always wore, the luxury SUV they'd purchased last spring, the expensive summer camp for the girls. Now that you mention it, I said slowly. Thomas has seemed stressed about money lately. When I offered to buy the girls new winter coats last month, he actually accepted immediately. That's not like him. And you're still paying for all the holiday catering? Barbara asked. Yes. Plus, I've been giving them money for the girls' private school tuition. Stephanie insisted they couldn't go to public school. Maggie. Barbara's voice was gentle but firm. When was the last time you looked at your bank statements? Looked at them. The question struck me as odd. Frank always handled our finances. After he died, I set up automatic payments for everything. The accountant handles the taxes. I think you need to take a closer look, Barbara suggested, and maybe call Martin's Catering to find out exactly what Stephanie ordered this year. After hanging up, I dug through my home office for recent bank statements. What I found sent a chill through me. Regular withdrawals for family support that I'd authorized after Frank's death had doubled over the past year. The mortgage payment on my own home had increased significantly, though I'd paid off most of it years ago. With shaking hands, I called Martin's Catering. Hello, this is Maggie Williams. I believe my daughter-in-law, Stephanie, placed an order for our family Christmas gathering. Yes, Mrs. Williams. Stephanie upgraded the package this year. the cheerful receptionist informed me. She added the premium bar service and the chocolate fountain. The total came to $3,500 with the deposit you've already paid. I thanked her and hung up, stunned. $3,500 for a gathering my own family wouldn't attend, and I was expected to pay for Stephanie's extravagance. With growing suspicion, I called my cousin Judith, who always attended our family gatherings. Judy, I was wondering what Stephanie told you about Christmas this year. Judith sounded confused. She said you insisted on hosting as always, that we shouldn't bring anything because you wanted to handle everything yourself, same as every year. Each revelation was another knife twist. Not only had I been manipulated financially, but Stephanie had been using me as an excuse to bolster her own social standing. I was the demanding mother-in-law in her narrative, insisting on controlling the holidays while she graciously complied. As night fell, I sat in my darkened living room, the Christmas lights casting shadows as I faced an uncomfortable truth. I had allowed this to happen by never setting boundaries or questioning their growing demands. Sleep eluded me that night. By morning, anger had replaced hurt, and with it came clarity. After a strong cup of coffee, I made 3 phone calls that would change everything. First, I called my bank and spoke with the branch manager. I need to understand some unusual activity on my accounts. I explained, arranging an immediate appointment. At the bank, Mr. Peterson pulled up my accounts and frowned. Mrs. Williams, did you authorize these mortgage adjustments? What adjustments? I asked. He turned the monitor so I could see. Your home equity line was increased last year, with nearly $50,000 withdrawn. The paperwork has your signature, but these additional automatic payments to an account in the name of Thomas and Stephanie Williams began 6 months ago. I felt sick as I studied the signature. It resembled mine, but I had never signed such documents. That's not my signature, I said quietly. Mr. Peterson's expression grew concerned. Then we have a serious problem. Would you like me to freeze these payments immediately? Yes, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. And I want to change all my account access passwords and security questions. By noon, I had discovered the full extent of the financial manipulation. Somehow, Thomas and Stephanie had used my information to secure additional loans against my house, with payments coming directly from my accounts. They'd also set up automatic transfers that had drained nearly $20,000 from my savings in the past year. My second call was to Martin's Catering. I need to cancel my order completely, I told them, ignoring the twinge of guilt. Family emergency. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Williams. We'll process your cancellation, though. We can only refund half the deposit at this point. That's fine, I replied. A small price to pay for reclaiming my independence. My final call was to James Harper, the attorney who had handled Frank's estate. He listened patiently as I explained the situation. What you're describing could constitute financial elder abuse, Maggie, he said gravely. At minimum, it's fraud if they forged your signature. Do you want to pursue legal action against your son? The question brought me up short. Did I want to sue my own child? No, I finally answered. I just want to protect what's left and set clear boundaries. But I need to understand my options. Sure, James agreed to meet that afternoon. By the time I left his office, I had a clear plan. I would establish a trust for the twins' education that neither Thomas nor Stephanie could access until the girls turned 18. I would secure my home with new documentation that would prevent anyone from taking loans against it without extensive verification. And I would draft a letter clearly outlining what had happened and my expectations going forward. That evening, I sat at Frank's old desk and wrote to my son, "Thomas, I've discovered the financial arrangements you and Stephanie have made using my home and accounts without my knowledge. I've stopped all payments and transfers effective immediately. I love you and the girls deeply, but I cannot and will not continue to finance a lifestyle built on deception. When you're ready to discuss this honestly, I'll be here. With love, always, Mom." I sealed the letter and placed it on the mantel, knowing the next move would be theirs. 3 days of silence followed. No calls, no texts. Then Thursday evening, my phone exploded with notifications. Stephanie was first, her voice shrill with panic. "Maggie, there must be some mistake with the caterer. They're saying you cancelled everything. The family gathering is less than 2 weeks away." I let her finish her tirade before responding calmly. "There's no mistake, Stephanie. I cancelled the catering because I won't be hosting any gathering this year." "You can't do that," she sputtered. "Everyone's counting on it. What about our family traditions?" The irony of her sudden concern for traditions was not lost on me. "I thought you were starting new traditions at the ski resort," I replied evenly. "I'm simply respecting your wish for change." She hung up abruptly. Within minutes, Thomas called, his voice tight with stress I'd never heard before. "Mom, what's going on? The mortgage company called, saying our payment was rejected. And now Steph says, you've cancelled Christmas." "I think we need to talk in person," I told my son. "Tomorrow, my house, 10 a.m. Please come alone." Thomas arrived exactly at 10, looking haggard in a way I hadn't noticed before. The confident financial analyst was gone, replaced by a man whose designer clothes couldn't hide the shadows under his eyes or the nervous tapping of his fingers against my kitchen table. "Mom, I don't understand what's happening," he began, accepting the coffee I offered. "Stephanie's hysterical. She says you're punishing us for wanting our own Christmas." I sat across from him, hands steady as I placed bank statements and loan documents between us. "Is that what this looks like to you, Thomas punishment? Or does it look like someone finally discovering they've been systematically deceived and used?" His eyes darted to the paperwork, then away. "We've been under a lot of financial pressure," he mumbled. "The market downturn hit my portfolio hard, and with the girls' school tuition—" "Stop," I said quietly but firmly. "Just stop. This isn't about market downturns. This is about forged signatures on loan documents. This is about $3,500 for catering a party you wouldn't even attend. This is about telling family members I insisted on hosting, while telling me I wasn't welcome at your Christmas." Color drained from his face as he realized the extent of what I knew. "Stephanie handled most of that," he whispered. "And you let her," I replied, disappointment heavy in my voice. "You're my son, Thomas, the little boy I taught to always tell the truth. What happened to that boy? He broke, then shoulders slumping as the facade crumbled. We're drowning, Mom. The house is too expensive. Steph's parents expect us to keep up with their lifestyle, and my bonus got cut this year. Steph said you'd want to help, that you'd never even notice the money with your accounts. So you took it without asking. You forged my signature and leveraged my home. I didn't forge anything, he protested weakly. Stephanie said you'd given permission. She handled all the paperwork. I wondered briefly if this was true, or if my son was shifting blame, but ultimately it didn't matter. He had benefited from the deception either way. Where is all the money going? Thomas, 30,000 from the equity line, 20,000 in transfers, plus everything I've given you willingly for school and activities. He couldn't meet my eyes. Stephanie's spending, it's out of control. Designer everything, memberships to clubs we can't afford, vacations to impress her friends. The ski resort for Christmas. It's $15,000 we don't have charged to credit cards already maxed out. This admission cut deeper than the financial betrayal. My son and his wife were living a lie, dragging their children and our relationship through their facade. And excluding me from Christmas. Was that also about money? Thomas had the grace to look ashamed. Partly. We knew you'd notice something was wrong if we had a scaled-back holiday. Stephanie thought if we created this narrative about new traditions, you wouldn't question why everything was different this year. Did you think about how it would make me feel to be told I wasn't wanted at Christmas with my only family? Tears filled his eyes. I didn't want to do it, Mom, I swear, but things have spiraled so far out of control. I don't know how to fix any of it anymore. We talked for hours that day about responsibility and consequences, about the difference between support and enabling, about the kind of example they were setting for Lucy and Emma. By afternoon, we had reached an understanding. I would help them develop a debt repayment plan with a financial counselor, but there would be no more loans or automatic payments. The Christmas ski vacation would need to be cancelled. When Stephanie arrived unannounced later that day, she found us reviewing their actual financial situation on paper. Her reaction was explosive. "You've turned him against me," she accused, pointing a manicured finger at me. "We needed that vacation. The girls were counting on it. The girls don't need a $15,000 vacation," I replied calmly. "They need parents who live honestly within their means." Stephanie turned to Thomas, expecting him to defend her. Instead, he stood his ground. "It's over, Steph. The lying, the spending, all of it. Mom's helping us create a budget we can actually follow. And telling everyone we've cancelled Christmas," she spat. "Humiliating me in front of my family and friends." "You did that yourself," I said, rising to face her. "When you decided to exclude me while expecting me to foot the bill. When you lied to everyone about my wishes and used my home as your personal ATM. Her face contorted with rage, then crumpled into tears. Beneath the perfect exterior was a frightened woman who'd built her self-worth on appearances. In that moment, I felt an unexpected pang of compassion for her. "We can fix this," I said more gently. "Not by pretending or spending money we don't have, but by being honest with ourselves and each other." The next few days were turbulent. as word spread through the family about the cancelled gathering. Some relatives were understanding, others indignant at the change of plans. Stephanie's parents called, alternating between threatening legal action and begging me to reconsider for the sake of the children. Through it all, I held firm to my new boundaries. Christmas would be different this year, but perhaps that wasn't entirely bad. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. Instead of waking to the excited squeals of my granddaughters discovering their stockings, I drove downtown to St. Mary's Community Center, where I'd volunteered to help serve holiday meals. "First time volunteering?" asked a silver-haired gentleman named Walter as we arranged desserts on trays. "First time in decades not hosting my own family," I admitted. "It feels strange, but also freeing." Walter nodded knowingly. "Family complications led me here 8 years ago. Now it's my favorite day of the year." Throughout that day, I found unexpected joy in new connections. The grateful smiles of strangers, the camaraderie among volunteers, the simple pleasure of being useful without expectation or obligation. When my phone rang mid-afternoon and I saw Thomas's number, I stepped outside to answer. "Merry Christmas, Mom," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "The girls miss you. We all do." "I miss you too," I replied honestly. "How are they enjoying their gifts?" I had sent carefully selected presents for the twins, delivered to their door by courier. "They love the books and art supplies," he said. "Simpler gifts than they're used to, but they've been creating masterpieces all morning." We talked easily for several minutes, the tension of recent weeks noticeably absent. Before hanging up, Thomas said something that gave me hope. "I told the girls the truth, Mom, that we couldn't afford the ski trip because Dad and I made bad financial decisions, that we need to spend less so we can fix our mistakes." How did they take it? "Better than I expected. Emma said she'd rather see you for Christmas anyway." January brought new challenges and opportunities for healing. Thomas and I met weekly to work through the financial recovery plan, sometimes with Stephanie, often without. They sold their luxury SUV, and Thomas took on consulting work to accelerate their debt repayment. My home, once leveraged without my knowledge, became a source of new security when I converted the basement into a small apartment to rent for additional income. The proceeds went directly into secured accounts for the twins' education. Stephanie and I reached a fragile truce. Her initial anger gave way to reluctant acknowledgement that things couldn't have continued as they were. When she suggested family therapy, I agreed immediately, recognizing it as the olive branch it was. By spring, new routines had emerged. I had monthly grandma days with just the twins, taking them to museums or parks without the pressure of perfect Instagram moments. Thomas called regularly, our relationship slowly rebuilding on honesty rather than obligation. The financial damage wasn't repaired overnight, but each month brought small improvements. More importantly, the emotional wounds began to heal as we all learned to communicate our true feelings rather than maintaining appearances. One warm evening, as I tended my garden, I reflected on the painful lesson that had transformed our family. The Christmas that never happened had ultimately given us all a precious gift: authenticity. By standing up for myself, I had freed all of us from the exhausting charade we'd been living. True relationships, I realized, can't be bought with catered dinners or expensive gifts. They're built on respect, honesty, and genuine care for each other's well-being. Sometimes the greatest act of love is setting boundaries that protect everyone involved. The path forward wasn't perfect. Stephanie still occasionally resented the financial constraints Thomas struggled with asserting himself, and I sometimes slipped into old patterns of overcompensating. But we were trying, and that counted for something. As I planted new seeds in soil warmed by spring's sunshine, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't expected to find again. Life had delivered a painful lesson wrapped in holiday paper, but within that box was the gift of self-respect I'd neglected for too long. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that hurt in the moment, but ultimately healed your family relationships? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more about navigating family challenges with grace and strength. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply stand our ground. Thank you for listening, and may your own boundaries always be respected.